I don't know, 2 minutes. And the idea is that you can now, what would take a few months to develop, now can happen in a span of a day, right? With simple iterations, with simple corrections, you can now build things in a day. And I think that's what he's alluding to is now it's not just coders who can code, at least directly. It's now just the average person who knows about these tools can now take their ideas and build something. Next slide.
Okay. Tap, please. Okay.
Cool. So I want to pay attention to three years that I think strike me pretty deeply when looking at this artificial development history. So the Alan Turing test in the 1950s was developed to determine whether a machine or AI can have human-level intelligence. I don't know how many of you have seen the news, but I believe it was GPT 4.5 who took the Turing test, and it was determined that it has, supposedly, reached human-level intelligence, or you can't distinguish it between human and non-human in conversation. I didn't read the whole article, but that was what it was kind of alluding to. And then we get to 1997 of Deep Blue playing chess and winning. AI loves to solve problems. Right? If you can pose a problem to AI, or pose an idea to AI for it to build, it treats it as a problem. Its only endeavor is to see something to fruition, see something to an end result or conclusion. And I think that's where, again, like in chess, the ultimate idea is to win and come to a solution of a win, or conclusion of a win. And then we get to 2022. ChatGPT is available to public testing. I have this vision or like hypothetical situation in my mind where 20 to 30 years down the road, I'm going to be sitting with my kids or my grandkids, and they're going to ask me, where was I, or what was my first interaction with AI? And I'm gonna have to tell them to sit down because you just had to be there. Like, I don't know how else to describe it other than, I remember I was doing an ML project for asthma predicting when someone might face their next asthma attack, either 6 months out or 3 months out. And when ChatGPT came out in 2022, it felt like I would assume the same way when like the internet came out or the iPhone came out, where everyone was gathering around it, looking to see what questions it can answer for you, how well it can answer for you, and whether it can recommend things for you or not, in coding especially. I remember that the servers for ChatGPT, people were galloping to use this technology so much that every 30 seconds to 30 minutes, the servers would crash. The site would literally crash because it was getting such an influx of people wanting to use it. Now, fast forwarding, 3 years later, I think there's 500 million users, I think, per day that are on ChatGPT, and you can use it seamlessly and easily. And also, in a short amount of time, in 3 years, going from GPT-3 to now 4.1, and then smaller models of 4.1, I guess, that just released, is a huge jump. And plus having the 03, 04 reasoning models is a huge jump. Plus having the DeepSeeks, Google Geminis, and Claudes following ChatGPT's rhythm, I guess, when it comes to developing AI. Next slide, please. Now, that breeds a new way to live and work. Now, these are only 3 industries that I think are the most prominent of how AI is affected. Education, healthcare, finance. I'm sure there's many more. I just didn't name them here. How many of you use Duolingo to learn a new language? Anybody? I presently am learning German. I plan to go to Germany sometime in June. I have family that would come down here every year, and they would speak my mother tongue of English, but I could never communicate with them. And I feel like it's only fair after my 27 years of living that I now kind of communicate to them in their mother tongue. And AI is integrated with Duolingo now presently, where it can pick up on the words that you have trouble with, formulate new sentences to include those words for you then to practice on over and over again, I guess until you get it. You guys, is Khan Academy still a thing out here? No? Anybody know Khan? It is? Okay. I remember when Khan Academy was popular when I was in high school, and I was using it to, I guess, catch up on, like, I think I was using it for Algebra 2 and Calculus I mainly use it for. And now apparently it's transformed where Khanmigo is a student's personal AI assistant for teachers or students. I think there is a fee for it, I'm not 100% sure. But even that is drastic, where now AI can adapt to the learning style, pace, and preferences of a student and give them the learning needs that they need. If I would have had that when I was in school, I'm sure that I would have made valedictorian every year. I don't know, I never made it, but who knows? I probably could have. Because obviously, right, AI could have, I don't know how many of you guys ever asked ChatGPT, in quote, tell me about me. ChatGPT saves who you are as a person, right? And is able to, not with complete accuracy, but give back an idea of who it thinks you are, what it thinks you're good at, what your strengths and weaknesses are, stuff like that. So in education, it does the same thing. In healthcare, which I'm very intimate with, at least a specific project, the AI is helping us to automate legal documents to maintain consistency and regulatory standards. I'll tell you right now, the FDA is annoying as hell. And so there needs to be a way to reduce human error so that they don't have to come back to us consistently and constantly. And AI can help us do that. AI loves monotonous redundancy. It loves the same thing to do every single day over and over again. So that's where I recently did a project last year trying to accomplish this, and it was successful, where I think it eliminated at least upwards of like 88% of mistakes. So it was accurate, I think, more than 88% of the time. When it comes to just kind of taking a source document, placing information from that source document, and putting it into a target document of like a form, something of that nature, and then generating a newly formed document with the information needed from that source document. I know that was a lot to say. I'll talk about it more in the next slide. Not yet though, but finance. Does anybody ever do day trading? Please say no. Kind of? Okay. I don't know how the market's looking for you, but okay, just checking. I've never been a day trader, but I do manage my own portfolios. I do trade options here and there. It's not the funnest thing, but I'll tell you right now, I have the story of being that broke college student. If I would have had an AI budgeter when I was younger, it would have helped me immensely from having like, I don't know, $5 left in my bank account constantly. Kahoot, Wally, Plum, all helpful apps that I think if you are curious, I would highly recommend checking them out and maybe having your own personal accountant, at least as an app on your phone. Events. And that makes sense. So what should you learn in 2025? I know this is probably a pretty general list, but I'm gonna name off maybe, I think 3 that might be most important. Agentic AI is a catch-all, right? We have Crew AI, AutoGen, LangChain, LangGraph, that all can supposedly build agentic systems. But what agentic systems are most useful? I've seen ones where they're able to bring about like hotel prices, flight prices, but how much does that help you when it comes to plug and play of saying, hey, I want you to, maybe having a voice assistant saying, I want you to find me the cheapest plane tickets to Germany that have the lowest layover time. And then having that agent take what you just said, find those flights, ask for your credit card information, you plug it in, and it's then able to not only find the flights, pay for it, book it, and you don't lift a thing. That's kind of the moneymaker in what needs to be done of having agentic AI do, is from question to execution without laying a finger on your PC or Mac or whatever you can think of. Synthetic data generation. I remember, I think it was 2022 or 2023, I was at Moffitt at the Business in Biotech conference. And Kathy Wood, who is I believe an investor, like a prominent investor was there, talking about at some point, there's not going to be enough data for us to train these large language models. And I do believe that is partially true, right? Humans produce plenty of data, text data, visual data, vehicle data, geospatial data every day. But it's not, I don't think, at least to the billions of what GPT was crawling in the beginning when it comes to the internet. Who knows if we'll be able to produce the same amount to train an even larger model. So the synthetic data generation is needed in that aspect. Where one use case that I ran through also is in healthcare, it's very difficult to find real world data. You might only get one data set in I don't know how many years of real world data that might be useful for you. And if you ask again, you need a lot of red tape, a lot of control, stuff like that. But what if you can take that one data set that you got, that took a lot of work to grab in the first place, and just make repeated versions of it over and over again with data sets that are close to the original. That could be immensely helpful rather than going all the way back again to the data steward to ask for access. And quantum plus AI. I recently did a project of quantum optimization for stock portfolios. Finance has been using AI for the longest time, and they've been using quantum for the longest time. A mix, I think, of classical computing and quantum computing, but they are well versed in when it comes to quantum and AI stuff like that. But I don't know if you guys have kept up with NVIDIA GTC events that happened or the Google Next events that recently happened. But I can see where there is a quantum chip battle happening between them. Right? I think it was Blackwell that's from NVIDIA, and then I forgot which one is from, or it might be a GPU chip. But I know there's quantum chips that are both producing that I guess all are kind of neck and neck. Next slide. So now we get into the project piece. The concept of adaptive RAG is fairly new, meaning it applies an agentic AI to it for decision making to determine whether a question can be routed to a knowledge base or a question needs to be searched via the internet or via a web search kind of tool. That's the first project we're going to run into real quick. So I'm going to go back there. And I don't know necessarily. Oh, yikes, am I doing it wrong?
Let me help you. It's a little bit clear.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. So let me actually stop sharing. There we go. Okay. So, how many of you are familiar with Google Colab? Have you guys used it before at all? Okay, nice. Just out of consensus and me just wondering what you guys think, what do you think of Google Colab? Would you use it regularly? Would you use Anaconda or Jupyter preferably, or what? Yeah? Okay, cool. Yeah, you too? I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of liking it. I kind of like the ability to connect to different like GPUs or CPUs or something like that. Anyways, that's nor here nor there. Let me share my screen real quick. So, I'm gonna go. Oh no, I know I did. Here we go. Nice. It's showing yet. Hopefully it'll get there. Stop sharing and then share.
Okay. I think I just saw it.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you share it again?
Yeah. Oh, there it is. Okay, cool. So just because this is a fairly large project, I'm not going to write anything. I kind of already had it pre-written. So yeah, we're just going to kind of run through it. I'm going to explain what each block does. And I think if you look up, I believe, Adaptive RAG in Google, Adaptive RAG LangGraph, I took this notebook and applied my own kind of pieces to it. But I took this notebook from Adaptive RAG LangGraph. You can search it on Google, and you should be able to find it pretty quickly. But obviously, first thing you want to do is install your packages. LangChain Community, Tick Token, OpenAI we're going to be using as the API key today. But I believe you can use Anthropic, stuff like that, ChromaDB, and Tavili Python search. So we're going to run this real quick, let it do its thing. Shouldn't take that long, so I have everything already installed. And then once this is done installing, we're going to move to the environment setup. So like I said, you can use Anthropic, OpenAI, whatever your choice. I think you can use Cohere for this as well. So take your pick, take your choosing, figure out what works best for you, and go crazy. But for me, I'm going to be using the Anthropic key, just a heads up. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. Cool. Should be good to go. Let's see. A lot. Okay. Beautiful. So now we move to the environment setup. So I'm going to have to stop sharing again so you guys can't steal my API key. Forgot about that. And give me a second. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. And now let me share back. Nice. So after we have our OpenAI or Anthropic key installed, you do want to make sure you have your Tavili and your AI key, whichever one used, or at least added. Tavili is kind of the most important piece here for the web search. Now we're moving on to creating the index. Now, depending on how you're connecting or what you're connecting to, the index setup will be different. We are using OpenAI embeddings for this, but instead we're using URLs. And these URLs are mainly tied to agent information. So you can see here, Salesforce Agentforce information or links, AWS AI agent links, Microsoft, what is an agent and how they'll change the way we work kind of link. Mainly we want to see how our logic will determine whether a question relates to any of these links or if maybe this question needs to be done via web search. So we're going to run this real quick. Yes, ma'am.
Can you explain to everyone what an embedding model actually does?
Yeah, so how many of you guys are familiar with vector DBs? Okay, kind of, sort of. Now, I can't explain at least the full technicalities of it, but in order for you to create a efficient vector DB, you need to have an embedding model that can create the vectors for your information. A vector, I believe, is like a label per token, I think, that is then stored in your vector DB. But you need a model to help you do that. OpenAI has some, I believe, or majority of them. I think Chroma has some as well. Llama, I think, might as well have some. But they're all over the place when it comes to what companies or different models might offer. Some of them are more efficient than others. It all depends on your experience of it. So now we get to the knowledge base and web search piece, aka the router. In summary, this code sets up a system for intelligently deciding whether to use existing documents or web search to answer a user's question. The decision is made by a large language model that is guided by a predefined prompt and structured to produce a specific type of output. So the prompt here that we see, let me just run this real quick while we're here. The prompt that we see here is, you are an expert at routing a question to a vector store or web search. The vector store contains documents related to agents, prompt engineering, and adversarial attacks. Use the vector store for questions on these topics, otherwise use web search. Now, the main, I shouldn't say the main, but the meat of where adaptive RAG really gets its usefulness is that it's able to take in the information and grade whether the documents that are in your vector store even are useful to the question that's being asked. So same concept here. This part of the code is designed to assess the relevance of documents retrieved in response to a user's question. There's a prompt in this as well. It uses a large language model to act as a grader, providing a simple yes or no judgment on whether a document is relevant. So next we're going to run this. Beautiful. And then after that, we get to defining at least the RAG piece, the piece where if the question does meet the requirements, or not the requirements, but does meet where it is closely semantically related to one of our URLs or documents, we want it to use the RAG framework versus navigating it to web search. This code snippet defines a system that retrieves relevant documents from the vector store, from a vector store, formats them, and then uses an LLM to generate an answer to a user's question. The answer is then formatted and outputted. It's the core of a RAG system, a key to AI-powered knowledge retrieval and question answering tasks. Now, this RLM RAG prompt piece, this is already a predefined prompt that I think is maybe from Langsmith, from LangChain and all that, I believe. Yeah, LangChain Import Hub, yeah. So they kind of already have these prompts that you can take and use when you are building certain models. They're already kind of extensive. You don't have to write a lot. So this is useful if you're kind of looking to not do so much prompt writing, instead kind of utilize what someone's already done in the past for your own work. Cool. So let me see. So prior to that, right, we're back in the document grader. I just want to kind of show this example because I kind of missed it. But in each function we're writing, we're essentially testing out how it's operating. So there's a question here. How can AI agents help me be more productive at work? We are testing whether we're testing whether this question gets routed to RAG or web search. Also in the next one, where we can see here, how can AI agents help me be more productive at work? Binary score is yes, where meaning that this question is directly tied to the documents or the URLs that we've placed in our vector store in the beginning. Also, feel free to ask any questions. I don't want to make this super formal, more of a conversation. So if there's anything that's not making sense, feel free to interrupt me. I won't get offended. And let me know if it just doesn't make sense and if it's just crazy. So anyways, moving on. Now that we have our question graded to determine whether it even is semantically related to the documents, we already defined our RAG, and we could see that just with this question here, the same question we have up top, how can AI agents help me be more productive at work? The information that is generated here is pulled from the documents, the URLs that we've also loaded into our vector store in the beginning. And it gave a response of AI agents can enhance productivity at work by handling routine tasks and complex assignments on your behalf. This is a long kind of excerpt, so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but with using GPT-4o Mini here it's able to take those documents or take those URLs that we have and comprehensively create a summary answering the question that we had before of how can AI agents help me be more productive at work? So then we get to hallucinations. Is AI tripping? I don't know, but let's find out. This code snippet defines a hallucination grader, which aims to assess the factual accuracy of an answer generated by a language model. It checks whether the answer is supported by the provided documents or not. So as you can see, I have another prompt here. You are a grader assessing whether an LLM generation is grounded in supported by a set of retrieved facts. Given a binary score, yes or no, yes means that the answer is grounded in or supported by the set of facts. So again, taking the same question we had originally, or I'm sorry, taking the response, the generated response, we're going to plug that into this hallucination grader to determine, to have an AI determine whether or not it's grounded in facts or if it's just complete rubbish. Now, hopefully, we get a binary score of yes so that we know that our AI is not hallucinating. These are factual information that is being generated and the response is factual. Now we have an answer grader. So again, in adaptive AI, there's checks that happen to determine whether the answer to a user's question is factual, is useful, or needs to be navigated in a different route or direction. And again, you can make multiple routes. It doesn't have to be limited to just web search versus RAG or anything like that. There could be, you can add different APIs to this, right? If a question is related to clinical trials, you can add a clinicaltrials.gov API to this, and maybe semantically there's a way it can be routed to clinical trials whenever it realizes, oh, this question is clinical trial related. So is this answer acceptable? This code defines an answer grader component that evaluates whether a generated answer effectively addresses the user's question. It leverages a large language model to make this judgment, providing a simple yes or no verdict. So same thing with this. We're taking that same generation that we had above, and you can see that I already said yes to this, meaning that the answer does address the original question that the user posed. Now, formulating a better way to write the question, I think, is important. And AI can be definitely useful in this aspect. AI is the best at communicating with AI. I use Microsoft Copilot a lot when making prompts, simply because if my prompt sounds too simple, I wanted to make it more comprehensive, more readable for an AI model. I use this a lot for things like Firebase, Bolt.new, Replit, whatever it may be, for these text-to-code tools to expand on my original prompt that I was planning on inputting to make it, again, more specific and more useful. So AI is the best at writing for AI. Let's keep that in mind. This code snippet focuses on improving the initial question asked by the user to make it more suitable for retrieving relevant information from the vector store. This process is crucial for getting better search results. And as you can see, we have a prompt here as well. You a question rewriter that converts, my bad, I'm terrible grammar. You are a question rewriter that converts an input question to a better version that is optimized. For vector store retrieval, look at the input and try to reason about the underlying semantic intent / meaning. So same question we used in the beginning of, I believe it was, how can AI agents help me be more productive? Same question we're using to test this as well. So we're going to plug this here. What are the ways AI agents can enhance my productivity in the workplace? I think this might have been the same one, but I'm not sure. Or same response, but I'm not sure. And this is where we're initializing the Tavili web search as well as the web search tool for our model or our logic to use. Now we're going to focus on storage and storing the responses. In essence, the graph state, by the way, I should have said this in the beginning, we are using a mix of LangChain and LangGraph. I probably should have led with that. Sorry about that, I completely forgot. But in LangGraph, you have to create a graph state to provide some type of structure. So in essence, the graph state class provides a structured way to store and manage information at different stages of the workflow. Think of it as a container that holds the question, the generation, and the relevant documents as the process unfolds. This structure helps in organizing and tracking the data as it flows through the various steps of the system. So we're going to initialize that real quick. Nothing too crazy. And now we get to the part where we're putting it all together. These functions that I'm showing you here work together to create a dynamic question answering system that can adapt its approach based on the user's input and the quality of the information it finds. I hope this explanation helps. Let me know if you have any further questions. So here's where we're going to kind of initialize it here. And as you can see, in the retrieve function here, we're using our retrieval definition we made earlier. Same thing with the generate. We're using our, I think it's the rag chain function we made earlier. Grade documents, same thing, retrieval grader, so forth and so on. These originally, the functions we made earlier were just to test the definitions we made, and here's us placing those definitions in other functions to use. So let's kind of come down. And now we get to the main conclusion, where we compile it all and make a workflow. This code defines a workflow graph that guides the question answering system through different stages of processing, ensuring a flexible and robust approach to retrieving and generating answers. The use of conditional edges allows the system to dynamically adapt its behavior based on intermediate results, ultimately leading to a more accurate and reliable answer generation process. So cool. Then we get to here, where the question that I have, right, is what are AWS agents? And what should happen is this question should be routed directly to whatever's in our vector store or vector DB, whatever you're using. And as you can see, it performs a document check. Ooh, it's not good. Answer is not defined. Let's do that real quick. Let's see what we're missing. Here it is. Let's run this and then let's do it again. There we go. More errors pop out. Beautiful. So far it's going well. Nice. Okay, so as you can see, it ran through the document relevance check for the question. And there is a few documents that we have, I think we had 3 or 4, I believe, where it determined which documents, I don't know if you guys need to kind of zoom in a bit. It determined which documents were relevant, which ones were not, check for hallucinations, generated a new, I guess, way of writing the question for the vector DB to better understand and give you the answer that we need. And it produced an answer of AWS AI agents or artificial intelligence applications that can be built, deployed, and run in the cloud using AWS services. They help businesses automate tasks, enhance decision-making, and improve customer interactions. AWS provides a comprehensive set of tools and resources to support the development and implementation of these agents. I am not sponsored by AWS, nor am I being paid, so that was free promo. And then we get to the second question, which this one I'm expecting it to route via web search. So what are Amgen's most notable drugs on the market, and what are they used for? Prior to this, I explained that our URLs that we plugged in had nothing to do with clinical trials, had nothing to do with drug development, all had to do with AI agents. So again, the conclusion for this is that the adaptive RAG, the AI model, the agentic AI, should be able to read this question, see that this question does not semantically match anything in our vector store, and make the decision to instead use web search. At least that's the hope. Thinking. Okay, so as you can see, you completely skipped the document relevance grader that we had, or determinant that we had, and instead just went straight to web search. It already identified that the vector store that we had nothing to do with Amgen or clinical trials. So again, it resorted to our Tivoli web search and came back with a web search answer of Amgen's most notable drugs include Enbrel, used for treating rheumatoid arthritis and other autoimmune diseases, and Neulasta, that's new, which prevents infections in cancer chemotherapy patients. Other significant drugs are Prolia for osteoporosis and Amavig for migraine headaches. Additionally, Blincyto is used for treating acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Some of those words I don't know what they are, but yeah. Anyways, that's a high-level overview on how agentic AI can be useful for you and how you can build it. Again, this code was taken from the LangChain site with a few or very minimal iterations of mine. I believe you can go straight to it. Let me see real quick. So you can go straight to it. Same explanation here. I believe there is published papers on it. It gives you a whole kind of graphic as well, or a logic guide, I guess you can say, that you can use and take. And yeah, what time does this end? 8:30, right? Okay, cool. Got one more project for you guys. So we just ran through agentic AI. The next one that I want to talk about, I can share. Okay, so yeah, if you are familiar with Anaconda at all, it is basically the toolkit for every data scientist out there. It has everything you need to make models, to make automations, so forth and so on. So this is a simple Streamlit application using CTGON, which is something that is useful when it comes to generating synthetic data, as well as pandas and joblib for, I guess, managing the memory when kind of training on the epochs that we're going to have. I believe there's 5 here. So we're just going to run this real quick. How many of you guys have ever used Streamlit? Anybody have developed some application on Streamlit? Nice. Okay, cool. So we're going to run this real quick. This should work easily. And then I'm going to use the iris data set for this. And then we're going to hop into Anaconda. First, I want to go to my files real quick. Take this, copy the path. Hop into Anaconda real quick. Take our command prompt. I know there's an easier way to maybe launch the Streamlit application from our code. I can't remember exactly how it goes, but you're going to want to use command prompt for this instead. Let me see if I can bring that up. Can I? No. Okay. So Streamlit, let me see if I can share this instead. Give me a second. So once you kind of have ran your code in your Jupyter notebook, you're going to want to go to your command prompt, Streamlit, run, copying the path that you saved your application from. Hit enter, and you'll get a local host that should pop up. And you'll get a screen that looks like this. So again, we're going to use a small data set. I think it has 150 rows maybe. The iris final one, or just iris data set. I believe that's like familiar with everyone's machine learning project. I don't know how many guys use it, but fairly simple data set, 100 something rows, 150. And we're going to want to make 50 more rows. Let me see if I can pop up that data set real quick. So yeah. Give me a second. I hate the fact I gotta kind of share and unshare over and over again, but it's okay. This is the iris data set when it will show up. There it is, it's coming. Is it? Please, don't take too long. Yeah, I know, I use Teams at work and it's not my favorite, but is it coming?
Here we go, yeah.
Okay, good. I can't see my mouse. This is the iris data set. I believe it's maybe like 150 something rows, 51. And it's useful for majority of machine learning projects that are out these days. This is the one we're going to be using, and we want to develop maybe another 50 rows of novel information based off this data set. We want to identify the discrete columns that we want to use, and then use that to produce our 50 rows of new data. So let me try to, how do I get out here? Can't see my mouse anymore. There it is. Stop sharing. So we're going to go back to our application using the iris dataset, asking it for 50 more rows. We set the epochs to, I believe, I think 3 or 5 for it to kind of generate. And you're going to want to hit the create synthetic data button. So I wonder if I could bring about comparison. So, oh my God, there it is. So hopefully the data that's produced here is completely different from what we have in the Excel. I see we have 11, 42, 64, 25, 41 as the first 5 IDs we have. Let's see if it's the same, hopefully not, as the original data set we have. So we know that it generated something completely novel. I hate that my mouse keeps going away. How do I get back to it? Give me a second. I wonder why my mouse keeps going away. Yeah, my mouse kind of got lost. I see it hopping, I guess, here. But then it goes away. I don't know why it does that.
Oh,
Let me see if we can kind of go on this now.
can you like alt tab to switch to
I don't know. Let me see if I can kind of, okay. I don't know why it does that. Sorry guys, technical difficulties real quick. Let me see if I can maybe do this. And then go here, and then we're good. Okay. Now, let's go back to Teams. And then let's do it again. Okay.
Wait a second.
It's taking a while.
By the way, camera.
Yes, sir.
I think if you want to switch tab, you can like press Alt and then tab.
Yeah.
And maybe it will help you with switching tab.
I think so. It might be better.
Okay, can you try it a little
Yeah, go ahead.
bit?
Okay. So in our original data set, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 as our original IDs. But if we take a look at our past data set, our one that we created using our Streamlit application, we then have our ID of 11, 42, 64, 25, 41, 63. So something completely new, even though it's out of order. I'm sure you can direct it a bit more to be more orderly if you kind of want the ideas to remain kind of a descending order numerically. But it generates something completely new. The IDs are completely new. And these are 50 more data points that you can then use for your own machine learning project, for your own kind of data science projects. The main point of this is to make sure that you have a consistent amount of data to train your models. I know this kind of was kind of clunky when trying to compare the two Excel sheets or compare the two data pieces, but this can be very useful for you when training your own LLMs, training your own models, doing data science work, stuff of that nature. I think that was the last quick project that we had, the last mini one. I know we have this room till 8:30, you said?
Yes.
Okay. I'll try to conclude it real quick. So I know we ran through that last project pretty fast, just to keep in mind of time. Is there any questions, any feedback, any comments, any insults, any, I don't know, whatever you guys might have? Yes, sir.
So I have heard about a thing called model collapsing, which is like when researchers they experiment and with training the AI with the synthetic data that the model produce. So they train I think the diffusion model. So they train the latent diffusion model on the output that is putting out, and each generation it collapses, and then the image like get kind of weird.
I can, this is my first, I haven't heard of it called model collapsing, but I have heard of issues happening with that, where like with diffusion models, there's, I don't know if it's,
It's like vanishing gradient.
yeah. But there was something called, not gradient loss, but there was something of that aspect where the more that you would train it over and over again on the same data, you would expect it to be reinforced to improve. But there was a phenomenon where every time, not on every model, but on a lot of models, instead, it would decline in its clarity, decline in its output. They still don't really know why this happens, right? It should be able to where you can take the output and just revert it back again. I mean, that's what the transformer architecture does, right? It has this attention mechanism in there that takes the response, trains it back up to the same, takes the response on the attention, does a reoccurring kind of neural network task in there to then generate a new response. And it kind of does that over and over again in revolutions. I don't know why there is that model collapsing issue. I haven't done too much research in it, but I have heard about it, just not with that name. But thanks for bringing that up. I got to look more into that. Any other questions? I'm free for insults as well if you hated it. But other than that, okay. If there's no other questions, we can definitely end it here. I do have